So, Michael, Strada Education Foundation, which is a sponsor of this podcast, recently released its State Opportunity Index, which we're going to link to in the show notes. And it's a nice deep dive into how each state is doing on 5 key indicators. And this was really interesting to me because, as you know, I cut my teeth as a reporter in the late 1990s. As a state reporter at the Chronicle of Higher Education. There were 3 of us who covered the states. We essentially divided them up. Twice a year, we would do this really comprehensive look at what states were doing. In December, we would look at the year ahead, what was called a legislative preview. So I loved it because we divided up the states. We'd have to call them up and figure out what were the big bills affecting higher ed and what was the budget outlook for higher ed. And then in August, we would kind of do a review with the Almanac of Higher Education. So it gave us a sense of really what was happening in all 50 states around higher ed. And one of the 2 things that I really learned from that time of covering the states for the Chronicle, one was that how uneven policy and spending was, right? Like the Northeast was very big at giving aid to private colleges, right? They're among the only states that would give direct aid to private colleges and universities because, of course, they had so many of them. The Midwest was huge on aid to students, while the West was big on, spending a lot on their public institutions, which is, for a while, many of them were free. And then the second thing was how ideas that started in one state spread to other states. And this was, well before the time when we had these vast interest groups who were essentially writing legislation and then they would provide them to different states. It was really one state deciding to do something and then other states feeling like they were in competition. And so they had to kind of compete on that front. And so we're going to come back to this idea in the second half of this episode. But the question to me is there a time for that to happen again, where states can take the lead given what's happening at the federal government level right now with higher ed?
Yeah, and Jeff, I'm glad that we're having this conversation right now, frankly, because out of this index that Strada released, they have 5 keys that they say, quote, will improve employment outcomes for learners and employers alike. And so we're going to talk more about whether, our take, right, on this in the second half. But let's lay out the 5 that they have highlighted. First is clear outcomes. Second is quality coaching. Third is affordability. Fourth is work-based learning. Fifth is employer alignment. I'll just note quickly, Jeff, like those 5, I don't think were on the menu in the 1990s when you were having these conversations. So it is interesting to watch the evolution in states leaning into these and measuring now, an entity measuring states against these. And then Strada, for the metrics, they've attached to each of those 5 categories, basically to rank each state as, are you leading, are you advanced, are you developing, or foundational? And the goal of improving on these keys is so that states can boost the numbers of individuals in their state that have a positive ROI from their post-secondary education experience within 10 years of completing their degree. And the report has a ranking for that too, where they show the percentage of students in each state that is currently achieving or has achieved that positive ROI. So there's a lot in the report, Jeff.
Yeah, and to help us kind of with some of the highlights from the report, but also to give us a little bit of a broader context of this moment and kind of the imperative for states at this moment, we're going to have Ruth Watkins join us here now from Strada. She's president of post-secondary education there. And before that, and this is important context for her, she was president of the University of Utah, where both degree completion rates and research funding increased under her watch. And so she was there as an institutional leader at a public university. So she brings an interesting level of context to this conversation today. So we're really excited to have Ruth with us. And so welcome, Ruth, to Future You.